Dr. Paul, for a very kind introduction. I have not updated my website in a million years. Ever since I became a parent, it's been very, very difficult to update the website, and it's interesting that you catch something about Manchester United. I thank God that we are doing well in the first game of the season. It's a good start. It's always a good start. I just want to say that it's a joy and privilege for me to share whatever that the Lord has put in my heart with you. I'm normally on the other side of the podium to have lecturers with your experience and knowledge teaching me about the Bible, teaching me about culture. But here today I have an opportunity to share with you and perhaps represent the millennials and the post-millennials as well. Just now during our worship time together, I saw a beautiful picture of millennials and post-millennials leading, if I could call you, the pre-millennials into the presence and the throne room of God. I thought that was a beautiful picture. I want to just tell you that I am a millennial. For those of you who are guessing my age, I am 36 this year. Okay, and I am a millennial who married a millennial. Okay, and I descended from baby boomer parents. I also descended from pioneer grandparents, and I have Generation Alpha descendants. And actually, if you think about it, that's the exact description of what a millennial is today in this world. I also want to share with you, this is not academic by any measure. This is very much a pastoral observation of the next generation, having worked with them in the lay capacity for 20 years and in a full-time capacity for about 10 years. I am a product of a Gen X pastoring, and I am pastoring Gen Y and Gen Z. So today what I hope to cover with you, if you could take a look at the next slide, is that we want to take a look at what the misunderstood millennial is. We also want to take a look at the millennial possibilities. In these challenging times, we have a lot of possibilities as millennials, reaching out to millennials. We also want to, I hope to cover some of the idiosyncrasies of millennials. And we also want to cover then something that I borrowed from a good friend of mine. This term he uses, the publishing generation. Okay, so this is a person called Terry Parkman. He's an American pastor, and he is a real reader of culture and a real reader of times. I want to borrow this term from him called the publishing generation. And then if we have time at the end of the session, I will share with you then the millennial implications for churches, for seminaries, and for any Christian organization. So very quickly, I want to tell you that the condition of the millennial and the post-millennial, so this is my little introduction, and I want to tell you that the condition of the millennial and the post-millennial generation is often the direct outcome of the parenting, shepherding, and educating of the pre-millennial generation. So whoever that we are today, it's kind of to your credit or your fault, depending on how we look at it. And I believe that a big part of our upbringing, the good part of it, it's all thanks to the good upbringing that we have received from all of you here. Most of you here are parents, some, maybe many of you here are grandparents, and everything that the next generation is about, you had a part to play in it. And I trust the Lord that it has been a great time of influencing the next generation. We are a product of you. The millennials and the post-millennials are a product of the pre-millennials that have gone before them. In every church, I believe that the church with a next generation ministry is a church with a future. The seminary with next generation students has a future. The Christian organization that has next generation leaders has a future. I find it interesting that a sister who was just seated beside the table that I was at before I came up said to me just now, we need a young person with us. And it's so interesting for me to hear that, because in my church, I am not young anymore, you know. I remember at our watch night service, in fact, one of our prayer meetings this year, where my senior pastor said, all those who are 35 and below, come to the front. We want to pray for you. And in my heart, I was like, I am so devastated that I'm no longer able to stand up with the next generation. And the Lord spoke to my heart, because your job is to nurture the next generation. And I believe that is a call for all of us in this room today. Now, the misunderstood millennial. Now, I want to tell you that the millennials are really misunderstood. Their age range really depends on the reference point, depending on which book you read, which website you refer to, which country you belong to and serve in. But because their reference points are so varying, the age range is so varying, I would then loosely call the millennials those who are in their 20s and 30s. To be more specific, those in their early mid-20s to their middle late 30s. Okay, so that's the millennial age range. The millennials are also known as Generation Y. Post-millennials are known as Generation Z. And it is significant because the millennials are representing the first generation of working adults in the 21st century that have grown up with the internet and with other technologies. So this is something that you want to pay attention to, because we, as a bunch of adults, we have grown up with technology and with internet as well. Now, millennials is a deeply loaded word, and often we receive very bad press. You know, they use God's creation to describe millennials. They call us the snowflake generation because we are so fragile and we are so easily wounded. They call us the strawberry generation, you know, because we are so easily bruised. They use God's creation. They call us the banana generation, where we are bruised even without contact, you know. And because I'm a Singaporean, they call us the durian generation as well. We are thorny on the outside, but we are mushy on the inside. We are deeply misunderstood. And I think we are deeply misunderstood because we are so different. And we are so difficult to understand. If you were to ask 10 different millennials, they will tell you 10 different things about themselves. You will not find a millennial who is able to tell you exactly something that defines the entire generation. Every millennial wants to be different from the millennial that's sitting beside him. So here's the misconception. Whenever you think about millennials, you think young, reckless teenager. Maybe some of you here, you go like, oh yeah, they're the young ones in skinny jeans, you know, in torn, tattered jeans. But can I just tell you that the reality is that the millennials who are the youngest today, they are already graduating from university. That's the millennials. The youngest millennials are graduating from university, and the oldest millennials are parents. We are no longer young, reckless teenagers. So here's the reality for all of us, and you want to understand millennials, that they are not about to make a difference in this world. They already are. They already are making a difference in this world. So for the people who are working with millennials, there are many possibilities when we want to work with them, nurture them, and serve alongside them. I want to tell you that millennials, they can be selfish, they can be self-centered, they can be entitled, but I also want to tell you that the millennials are a bunch of people who care about people, who care about building relationships, and who care more about society, generally speaking, than Generation X. They have a deep concern for society, and at this point in time, it is good for us to understand two other terms: the sandwich generation and the boomerang generation. So unlike baby boomers and Generation X, who need to look after their parents and their children, hence the sandwich generation, the millennials, the majority of millennials are actually boomerang generation, where they go out to the workplace and they come back to their parental home. They boomerang back because the majority of millennials are not as concerned with financial sustainability, which is why they are able to take their time to look for a job, because they want to find their dream job. But for many of us here, if I could throw myself in the above 35 category, for many of us here, we just have to go for that first job because we have parents to look after or we have kids to raise. And that's a huge difference between millennials now because their parents have taken care of family finances. So what is the implication? The implication is that the millennials are more ambitious, they have a greater risk appetite thanks to a stronger financial base and less financial obligations. So that's the kind of millennials that we're dealing with. They are concerned about bread and butter issue, but they are also very idealistic, altruistic, and they think about creation care. They think about social issues, environmental awareness, human rights, poverty, helping the elderly, inclusiveness, mental wholeness, etc. And because they have a longer period of career experimentation, and you have to hear this, they have the freedom to truly pursue what the Lord has put in their hearts to do. And that is something that's very unique about the next generation. That unlike a lot of us here who are realists, who are pragmatic, who are very practical, the next generation gets a chance to dream, gets a chance to pursue everything that the Lord has put in their hearts to do. You know, I really enjoy what Dr. Ivor said about generous giving, but I also believe that more than just the giving of resources that you have given to them, you have also given of yourself to the next generation. And that's something that the next generation will benefit from because, nurtured well, they will lead Christendom to heights that this generation could never reach because the millennials are highly competent, they are highly connected with one another, and they are highly concerned. So here is something that you want to also understand about millennials, is that they are looking for fulfillment more than fame or fortune. They are looking for fulfillment more than fame or fortune. Now, with every generation, there are idiosyncrasies. And let me share a few idiosyncrasies of the millennial generation with you. There are some unfortunate stereotypes that my generation needs to deal with. We have been told that we are an entitled generation. We have a sense of entitlement, especially within the workplace. We think that the workplace owes us something. We think that it is a privilege for the workplace to have us, and not so much of a privilege for us to be in the workplace. There's a sense of entitlement with the millennials, and that's a sad, unfortunate stereotype. Second is there is a need for approval. We have a great need for approval, even when the work is not very impressive. And I really thought whatever that Dr. Ivor has said just now about encouragement is so true. It's not just to tell them what they could do better, but they need to hear what they have done well in. Because some of them don't even know that that is good or bad. They just think that because it's from them, it's good. The third thing is that they are very easily distracted. If you have ever spoken with a millennial at length, you will know that they are multitasking all the time. Because they have distractions from technology and media, and therefore they have a short attention span. And finally, they also have an obsession with me. I mean, not me, but me. And this obsession is really captured in a selfie, which I'm going to take with you today. Yeah. Wow. And this entire selfie generation really shows that they want to be the reference point of everything that's happening in the world. So let's see what's happening. Whoa! Look at that. Handsome. Okay. Now, I want to tell you that besides all these things that you're observing about the millennials, whether they are entitled, whether they are a selfie generation, I want to also show you the reality that very soon millennials will be the largest working generation. Means that they will dictate the economy. They will bring in the money for every country, every church, every organization. They will be the one raking in the cash. They will also soon be the largest living adult generation. That means that they are responsible for many things that happen in our society. But more significantly, they will also then be the largest voting generation. It means that they will make a dent and they will dictate and influence what happens in our churches, in our seminaries, as well as in our society. Now, the millennials are very interesting. They are perpetually broke. Like you can see from my previous slide, they are perpetually broke. But they splurge on affordable luxuries like designer bags, like limited edition shoes, like gourmet coffee, like cafe food. Have you been to a cafe to have scrambled eggs on avocado on toast? You could get that for what, 4 to 5 Singapore dollars from the supermarket, but the millennials are willing to pay $25 for something like that. Why? Because they want to feel that they are in a luxurious space. Why pay $5 for hipster coffee when you can pay $1 for solid Singapore coffee? But the millennials will even go and pay $7.50 for a chain of restaurants that serve burnt coffee. I don't want to mention which one, but they are all over the world and they are consistently so consistent because all of their coffees are just burnt. That's why it's consistent all over the world, okay? I'm speaking with professors and lecturers, very smart people. I don't need to tell you what I'm talking about. And they want to go for Insta-worthy holidays. It's no longer about scaling that mountain for the sake of, but it's about appearing on social media, in that location, doing something cool. That's what the millennials are like. These are our idiosyncrasies. Let me tell you that the millennials, they are departing from the 5 C's that Singapore traditionally covered. Cash, a car, credit card, condominium, a country club. But they are departing from that. They are moving into a shared economy, which is what we can call peer-to-peer sharing. For example, our workspaces are being shared, which is why we have WeWork as an organization. Our accommodation are all being shared, which is why we have Airbnb. Our transport is all being shared. In Singapore, we use Grab, and it's all being shared. Our entrepreneurship is being shared, which is why we have Kickstarter, we have Indiegogo, and we even have our goods being moved around. In Singapore, we have a local brand called Carousel, and it allows you to move your second-hand goods around in a marketplace. Why? Because this is a peer-to-peer economy, a sharing economy. Here's the thing. The next generation, the millennials, they don't want to be told what to do, but they want to be told where to go. And they will find their own way there. It's no longer about you telling them who they're going to be, where they're going to go, and teach them how to get there. Tell them the destination and give them that freedom to find their own process. That's what they value. So if you want to understand millennials, you must see that they value collaboration and conversations over instruction and imperatives. This has deep implications in the way that we teach and preach the Bible, deep implication in the way that we theologize, deep implication in the way that we mentor and nurture, because it's no longer telling them about the Bible tells me so. It's more than that. You have to engage in a conversation with them and help them to see that it's more than just what the Bible says. It's about what the Lord is saying to them individually. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is this thing that my friend Terry Parkman coined. He calls the millennial generation the publishing generation. Now, he calls this the publishing generation because technology and the internet has already wired the way that the millennials are thinking, the way that they are behaving, and the way that they make decisions. As such, we have already entered an era where millennials and post-millennials are the most published generation. It's interesting that Dr. Paul, when he introduced me, he found my blog by Googling me. That's a very clear example of a millennial who's already published without even being an author. If you have a Twitter account, you have an Instagram account, you have a blog site, you are already a publisher. There are so many authors now who are releasing ebooks without going into an actual publisher. So they are a publishing generation. And let me just help you to understand what publishing generation is all about. They are not just interested in learning from one person, one lecturer, one pastor, one Sunday school teacher. They're not just interested in learning from one person, but they want to tell people why what they have learned is important to them. That's the difference. It's not just about retelling, it's about regurgitating. It's not just about receiving, but it's about regurgitating. They don't just want to tell others about what you said, but they want to tell others about what they think about what you have said. So you have to catch this in the way that you do your pedagogy, in the way that you do your education to the next generation. You've got to be quote-worthy. You've got to be Twitter, you've got to be tweet-worthy. So that everything that you say is captured into a short, succinct thing so that they can have thoughts on it and share their thoughts with the friends that they are around. So the publishing generation is asking a few things. The first thing that they're asking about is that they're asking about their identity. What does it mean to be a Christian in church? And what does it mean for a Christian in church to be a Christian outside church? That's what the millennial is asking about their identity. They are asking about their worldview. They are forming and articulating spiritual and moral beliefs and convictions. And whatever that you say to them, they will process it, internalize it, and it forms their worldview. They are asking about motivation. Yes, the gospel is important. Yes, the gospel has an impact. But more than having it just cerebral, how does it practically impact my life goals, my current priorities, and the communities and the behavior of society, or my behavior in society? And they are also asking about faith. It's not just the impact of their own faith on their community, but also about how other faiths impact their community. So the millennials are asking questions like these. And so I want you to know that if we are looking at a consumer generation where we think that all of us in church, in a Bible school, in a regular school, it's just about receiving and consuming, I think it's more than that. The millennial generation is moving into a publishing generation because it's no longer about creating and delivering content to consumers, but you're delivering and producing content to publishers. So how do you know that you have communicative success? How do you know that whatever that you say to millennials is effective? It is when they receive and regurgitate your content and pass it off as their own. I know plagiarism is huge in this world. But can I just tell you that in a shared economy, everything can be plagiarized. And once they start to, please don't read what I did not say, okay? Once they start to plagiarize you and pass it off as their own, you know that they have processed what you said. It's not a bad thing. If you start to see something that Dr. Paul or Dr. Ivor, you suddenly see, hey, that looks like something that I said. That's good, because some of them have already processed what you have said. And they may not give you credit, but that's the next generation, because everything is shared. So don't shun it, but welcome it. It is not an integrity issue, it is just their personality. I want to share with you a quote that's given by this cultural anthropologist called Margaret Mead. And this is what she says. She passed away in 1978, so she's quite a prophet of her times. And she says this: throughout history, most cultures have been disfigurative, where parents and grandparents help their young to understand the future. A few times, it becomes co-figurative, where change happens so fast that society depends on the young to help understand the future. However, and this is a person who passed away in 1978, I anticipate that a time is coming in history where technology changes so fast that culture, for the first time in human history, will be prefigurative, where children will have to figure out for themselves what their values would be. It's an ominous sign that the next generation are forming their values as they publish. And we, as the generation before them, have a huge responsibility to help them shape their values by giving them the space to shape their values. If you want to understand the millennials, you must understand that as content generators, as content creators, we have to evolve from creating solid content to creating shareable content. I think that is in my next slide. If you could show that. If we are content generators, you could show the next slide, please. Slide before that, I think. Before that. One more. One more. Okay, never mind. It's all right. Backtrack. Just scratch the last 1 minute. As content generators, we are to evolve from creating solid content to shareable content. So here are some implications for ministry. Okay, I have a few questions to ask. The first one is your organization equipping Christians for a world that does not exist? We have to encourage a publishing generation to go against the tide of the world wanting to take over this generation. The second question that I'll ask is, does your organization's event have access where everyone, regardless of beliefs, are welcome? Where it has community and people get a platform to identify one another, and they get engagement where the real needs and the felt needs of people are met. Because if it doesn't have access, community of engagement, or engagement is not going to connect with the millennials. The third question I'll ask is, does your organization create space to let Christians wrestle with long-held traditions and norms? They need to wrestle before they form a new identity. We must care about processing with millennials as much as we care about planning for them. If you're not listening to them, you are not relevant to them. And lastly, is your organization able to rethink discipleship in terms of meaningful relationships, cultural discernment, leadership development, vocational discipleship, or a first-hand experience of Jesus? So the anchoring question I want to ask all of us today is, what kind of millennial and post-millennial is your organization producing? What kind of millennial and post-millennial is your church, seminary, or organization producing? Dr. Ivor, in his devotion, he said something that I thought was very shareable. He said that the gospel is not just moving from geography to geography, but from generation to generation. You see, I've started to plagiarize him already. That means I'm processing it. And I want to leave you with the final thoughts from the psalmist. Psalm 78, verse 1 to 8 from the Message. This is what Eugene Peterson says. Listen, dear friends, to God's truth. Bend your ears to what I tell you. I'm chewing on the morsel of a proverb. I'll let you in on the sweet old truths, stories we have heard from our fathers, counsel we've learned at our mother's knees. We're not keeping this to ourselves. We are passing it on along to the next generation. God's fame and fortune, the marvelous things He has done. He's planted a witness in Jacob, set His word firmly in Israel, then commanded our parents to teach it to their children, so the next generation would know, and all generations to come. Know the truth and tell the story so their children can trust in God. Never forget the works of God, but keep His commandments to the letter. Heaven forbid they should be like their parents, bull-headed and bad, a fickle and faithless bunch who never stayed true to God. How strong these words are. And I think it's a good way for us to consider how then we as churches, seminaries, and Christian organizations can better reach the millennials and post-millennials in our society today. With this, I come to the end of my little sharing. I'll show my last slide. If you want to connect with me, we are no longer on Facebook, okay? That's something of the pre-millennial generation. Seriously, most of the young people now don't really have Facebook. So I'm on Instagram if you want to connect with me. Otherwise, my email is there. Otherwise, I thank you so much for giving me your time. It has been an honor to share with you. Thank you very much. God bless you.